I fell in love with treating OCD and anxiety. I was really doubled down in helping parents with OCD because I have 3 kids of my own with anxiety and OCD, and so there's a passion in that.
Can you treat just the child, or do you find that you need to have the family involved in the experience too?
The family's so important. It's like treating an arm without the other arm. It's a whole system issue, and if the parents don't understand what to do and how to handle the child with OCD, and the child's being treated in a bubble, they're not going to get better.
When you're meeting with families for the first time, what's your intro, your go-to?
I think it's important to let them know that it might get worse before it gets better. That this is a beehive that we're going to remove, and when I'm picking it up, it's going to swarm, and the bees are going to get angry, and so you might see an increase in symptoms for a brief period of time as we make progress. Once they realize that what they're doing intuitively isn't helpful and that you have to do something counterintuitive, they start to make a lot of progress.
You've probably heard of OCD, but I bet you don't really know that it's a condition that impacts 1 in 40 adults in the United States. Obsessive compulsive disorder is more than about just cleaning and organization. It causes intrusive, persistent, sticky feelings and thoughts and images that can seize on any topic, from romantic relationships to illness to spirituality, and really anything that matters to you. Now, this can cause significant anxiety and guilt and shame and disgust and whatever uncomfortable emotion it may grab onto, and it may make it hard to function in day-to-day life. If this sounds familiar, know that you're not alone, and help is available. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist with 25 years of OCD treatment experience, so I know how scary these symptoms can be, but I also know that they can be managed with the right type of treatment. This is why I lead a team of top-tier clinical experts at NOCD. NOCD is an online platform offering specialized, accessible, and convenient OCD treatment. My team and I have helped people take back their lives from OCD through specialized therapy that's covered by insurance. To learn more about OCD and effective treatment, head to NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com. You deserve to live the life that you want to live, and not the life that OCD wants you to live. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on our latest podcasts and webinars. Now, on to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Get to Know OCD podcast. My name is Dr. Patrick McGrath, and I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for NOCD. Today, my friend Natasha Daniels is here. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And here we are in the midst of the International OCD Foundation Conference. So people have gathered in the Chicago area. And so thanks for taking a little time away from the conference to have a chat.
Oh, no, it's nice to take a break.
Now, you really focus a lot on kids, like that 7 to 21-year-old range in your work. And tell us, how did all of that get started? Let's learn a little bit about you first.
Well, it's a long story. I'll make short.
Yeah, we have editing capability, so it doesn't really matter how long it is.
Yeah. I started, I was an anxiety and OCD child therapist, and then I wrote a book, How to Parent Your Anxious Toddler, which actually got me into the online world of like needing to have a platform. And then very shortly after, I fell in love with the power of teaching and reaching people online, and moved to anxiety and OCD, and then really doubled down in helping parents with OCD because I have 3 kids of my own with anxiety and OCD, and so there's a passion in that. And I've been doing that ever since. That was like 10 years ago.
So just a tiny part of your life then is
just a small part.
What you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is it specifically about anxiety and OCD that is so interesting to you?
Besides the strong genetic component that runs in my family, I fell in love with treating OCD and anxiety. It was just something that, with the right skills and supporting the parents, you just saw people's lives completely evolve and change. And I loved that because I started off as a general therapist, and then quickly I was just like, would look forward to like the anxiety and OCD on my caseload. And I was like, why is that? And it's because when you teach them and you give them the right skills, they just blossom. And it's just the power of it is just really, really impressive.
And that's really grown for you from being, some online presence and doing the therapy to now the groups and tell everyone that you've got this conglomerate of stuff going on out there. What is it?
It's evolved. There's a lot of people out there globally that have no access to care. I mean, NOCD's made a huge impact in changing that, but helping parents understand that it's even OCD, just like the gatekeeping. So, I have a podcast as well, YouTube channel, and then I made courses so that people could just learn these skills themselves. And then they wanted more support, so we've got a member community where they can do like weekly Zoom classes and support group calls for kids and teens and parents. And people are all over the world. So we've got people from Australia and Japan and America and UK, just everywhere getting together.
What would you say are some of the differences in diagnosing OCD in children versus maybe adolescents and adults?
A lot of times when they're younger, the compulsions are like parent involved. And so I think that gets missed. Parents will say, normally they think it's anxiety or something else or difficult behavior. I rarely have a parent come in when they're younger and say, I'm worried my child has OCD. There's a lot of like accommodations and compulsive reassurance seeking and things that they don't realize are OCD related. I also see a lot of like concerns about being a good person and morality that I see when kids are little. And so I think the biggest difference is people aren't coming in suspecting OCD.
What are they thinking it is when they don't think it's OCD?
They know there's something off. Like my
Okay.
child's asking me a million questions. More often than not, I think they think it's anxiety. I think they're just really anxious. They keep asking me if they're a good person, or they keep excessively apologizing, or they have repetitive behavior and I don't know what it is. Or they're having difficult behavior. They're melting down when I sit in their chair, or, like they're seeing surface behaviors that slowly you start to like ask the right questions and you're like, oh, this is OCD.
OCD is not very nice in that it doesn't let us know it's OCD all the time, does it?
Yeah, it's not a very vocal disorder. Yeah, it's me, OCD.
Yeah. Just want to say hi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find sometimes families are shocked that it's OCD because they think, oh, I thought that was just hand washing or something like that? Or
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and sometimes even we'll argue and it's not OCD. Have you seen their room? They're a mess, or they're not organized, or they don't line things up. They don't wash their hands, just the stereotype of what's perpetuated out there. So then you have to do like some psychoeducation with the parent. Like, let me explain what OCD is so you can realize that it is OCD.
can you treat just the child, or do you find that you need to have the family involved in the experience too?
The family's so important. It's like treating an arm without the other arm. And it's a system. It's a whole system issue. And if the parents don't understand what to do and how to handle the child with OCD, and the child's being treated in a bubble, they're not going to get better.
Yeah, that family accommodation piece is really so important. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit about when you're introducing treatment and the concepts of it. Are there times families say, I thought you were trying to fix my child. Why are you telling me what to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to start with the parent. I always started with the parent and would just say, let me educate you on what OCD is. OCD is opportunistic and it's going to want you to feed it, and this is what it looks like. And even helping them understand what exposures will look like down the road, because then, that can be alarming to parents when you're like, we're going to do exposures and let me do all these strange, bizarre things to your child and trigger them. So There's so much psychoeducation and helping the parent and participating in treatment.
I had a student once, I remember, who I said, now, when we're done today, and it was back in the IOP days that I was doing, make sure you walk that adolescent out to their parents and explain to them the homework.
Yeah.
And I got a nasty gram of a voicemail the next morning from this family who said, we're not bringing her back. And I saw my student walking through the hall, and my door was open. And I said, listen to this voicemail. I have a feeling you did not follow my advice and go out and talk to the family. And she said, oh, I forgot. I was like, yeah.
There you go.
This is what happens when
Exactly.
right?
That
When
is
that
what
doesn't
happens.
occur. Yeah.
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 A bad Yelp review.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that really is essential that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. I think you've got to involve the parents.
Do you have any particular techniques that you really go to make sure that everybody's kind of playing in the sandbox nicely here in these situations?
I think it's important to give parents a voice. So I would meet with them alone the first session just to, really have them, I could focus on them and like read the room and see who's struggling to understand this and who's not. And then touching base periodically without the child there, on how it's going, how they're feeling, get the parent that's not showing up for the session because they sometimes are accommodating and you're just kind of sabotaging treatment. So, and even checking in, like I have inadvertently triggered parents where I'll be so focused on the child in session and they're doing something and they touch something and then all of a sudden I look over and the parent looks like they're about to pass out. And I'm like, I didn't really explore, and I gotta circle back and, and they're triggered with their own OCD. So really understanding the family dynamics and like their own health issues, and that's all important.
Yeah. When you're meeting with families for the first time, what's your intro, your go-to to not only show them what OCD is, but to motivate them to do this work? Because this is not easy stuff, right? This is not just you're going to come in for a week, we're going to chat and do some diaphragmatic breathing and muscle relaxation, and you should feel better every time you leave here. This is a very different experience.
Yeah, and I think it's important to let them know that it might get worse before it gets better. That this is a beehive that we're going to remove, and when I'm picking it up, it's going to swarm, and the bees are going to get angry, and so you might see an increase in symptoms for a brief period of time as we make progress. But I think parents are just so relieved to know that this is like, that I know what they're talking about, because they come in and they're embarrassed, they're mortified. A lot of times with like taboo themes or even just moral OCD, they have no idea what's going on. When you're like, yeah, do they ask you this? And oh, they're saying that. And they're like, you have people who come in here who talk about that. And there's just this normalization. And then the hope of, yeah, we treat this all the time and it can get better. I think that relief for the child and for the parent is palatable.
Mm-hmm. In terms of that work, then, this is something that's going to become the new norm, right? Having to get rid of these accommodations. I liken it to a substance abuse. You might, hey, guess what? No alcohol in the house for maybe forever, right? But at least for the next few years, so that that temptation is not there. And so it means, when your kid wants that extra bar of soap or something, or that cleaning product or whatever it might be, no, we're not going to give in to that. And so many parents have trouble, I think, with setting that limit, or to be with a child who's uncomfortable without doing something to get rid of the discomfort.
And a lot of that is their stuff. And that's kind of like the work that I do online is like, if I need unconditional love from my kid, or I feel like a bad parent, pulling back those accommodations is going to be really tricky. Or if I don't understand the science behind pulling back my accommodations, now I feel like a bad parent. Or if I can't handle it when my child screams like, I hate you, then I'm not going to want to be able to do it. And so tapping into their childhood, their triggers, their stomach for it. And I always equate it to a toddler. I'm like, think of OCD as a toddler, like, in the shopping line. And if you give your child the candy, guess who's going to have a meltdown every time they're in the shopping line? Right. Like, we can all relate to that if they've had kids. And so,
I mean, your children are perfect, of course. They've never
absolutely. They're beautiful. Have you met them? Yeah, that's what their OCD therapist would say.
Yeah, and but I'm glad you said that, because how many people in the lives of the child, maybe the teacher or someone says, they're wonderful children. But at home, it's an entirely different world potentially, right?
And I mean, I think it's good that you brought it up too, because even if I know what to do with my own kids, but it's still hard to do. And it's exhausting, and you're tired, and you just want to give in, or it's embarrassing. I mean, there's so many reasons why we cave to accommodations. You can know everything and still mess up because you're human, and most people do.
We should be better than human, shouldn't we?
I know. I'm striving.
We keep trying.
Yeah.
Failing every time, though. But
Yeah.
but that's what a lot of people, unfortunately, look at it as. Like, I have to be a superhuman in order to get through this.
Yeah.
When maybe it's more simple than that. There's a set of rules to follow, and if you're consistent with them, you have the best opportunity for seeing change.
Yeah, and I think when you really spell it out, and it's systematic, like you said, or you have a therapist help you and say, these are the behaviors that you're involved in, and these are the behaviors you're going to slowly pull back, and we're going to just start with this one particular thing. And this is what you're going to say when your child comes, or we're going to have reassurance cards, and they have 10, and when they don't use all 10, they're going to earn blah, blah, blah. And you really create a formula for how they're going to approach it. It's scripted. Then you're more likely to stay with it versus, I think this is OCD now, so I'm going to not give in. But then I don't know about this moment, and now I'm tired and I haven't eaten, so I'm going to give in, and it's all over the place.
So I like that idea of reassurance cards, right? This is what you get, and if you don't use them all, then you can earn something.
Yeah.
Are there other tools or things that you like to use or bring into therapy that you can share with folks just to get an idea about how do we intervene with families to help all of the accommodation? Because we're not telling someone to dive in the deep end of the pool. We're going to stick a toe in the water, and the whole family can do that together, right?
Yeah, I think it's, reassurance cards are definitely one of my favorite tools because you can gamify it. But I think partnering with your child, personifying OCD if you can, so that we're on the same page. So O-Cloud's bothering you. When I talk to O-Cloud, I grow it. And so I love you. So when O-Cloud is asking me this, I'm going to say, I love you, so I'm not going to high five O-Cloud. So having that basic understanding of this is how I'm going to respond to you. And it's not going to go pretty. A lot of times parents will message me and they'll be like, that didn't go well, and they were yelling at me. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
We're not gauging success based on high five, mom. Thank you for not feeding my OCD. It's a thankless job. So training parents. But then involving parents too, maybe you even come up with an alternative response that's very triggering. And so even role-playing that, my son had a flavor of moral OCD a couple of years ago, and I didn't even notice because it wasn't his front burner issue. And he's like, and I said, he keeps saying, I'm sorry all the time.
Oh,
yeah. And he would say, thank you a lot. But then when I was going to the doctor, and he's like, no, I took him to the doctor, and he's like, thanks, Mom, for taking me. And that's when I realized we have a problem. I'm like, why is he saying thank you for taking me to the doctor? So eventually he's like, when I say I'm sorry a lot, that's my OCD. And he didn't have moral OCD, he had other issues. So it did catch me off guard. And we came up with an agreement. And I said, will you be okay? And I asked for permission. When you say I'm sorry, I'm going to say sorry, not accepted. Or you should be sorry. And I started with an accent, although my kids don't always like my accents, because then I'm like, sorry, not accepted, and they're like, just to throw them off and not be too serious. But then eventually I did a stern face, yeah, you should be sorry. And he'd be like, well, I should, but eventually he was just like, and then he'd walk away. But having that script and even having your kids be aware, this is how it's going to go down, that's helpful.
I had someone standing at my office for an hour and a half begging me to accept an apology that I had said I would not accept because the day before we had agreed that I was not going to accept apologies anymore.
Yeah.
And the next day they came back and shook my hand and said, thank you.
Yeah,
so
that's
in
nice.
the moment it was terrible.
It's a nightmare.
They're just begging me and begging. I just need one more time. And I said, no, we really did make an agreement yesterday, and I'm going to stick with our agreement that I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's like chicken. It's like, who's going to blink?
Right.
A lot of times I'm like, I'm going to blink.
Yeah.
How long can we go on with this? Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. What other tips do you, and because you've got the newsletter that goes out and everything, and I'm sure there's so many great ideas and tips and stories that people share in there. What things do you see, or what inspires you from what you hear about other families who are dealing with OCD?
Oh, parents are just really creative and, willing to show up for their kids. I think once they realize that what they're doing intuitively isn't helpful and that you have to do something counterintuitive, they start to make a lot of progress. Yeah, I can't think of anything really creative to tell you out of the top of my head.
Yeah, I would say I agree, that counterintuitive piece, because that's what's always fascinated me about ERP is that in some ways it's easy stuff, right? It's quite simple, but putting it into practice can be amazingly difficult, right? So on paper, well, when someone does this, then do this instead. The response prevention, but boy, to implement that is a totally different thing.
Yeah. And a lot of times parents are looking at the top of the anthill, and they just see all these compulsions and all these ants. And so it looks like it's worse than it is because they're just seeing like a gazillion compulsions. But then when I teach parents about core fears and like what's driving it all, and then we have like one or two core fears that's driving everything, it doesn't feel as overwhelming because like you're like, yeah, it's going to morph and shift. So they did this compulsion and then you worked on it and now they're doing this compulsion, but it's just another ant. But getting to that queen ant and learning how to target that is really helpful.
Yeah, and that queen ant is buried in that mound, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, which can make it all the more difficult. And OCD will do all that it can to throw you off. Right?
It will. And it's mean. It'll say mean things.
Yeah. That I want to go to because sometimes I say to parents, be ready to be yelled at.
Yeah.
Be ready to be called names and know that that is another tool of OCD to intimidate you and to make you feel so small that you'll just want to cower in the corner so that OCD can win.
Yeah, and it knows what to say. You're not a good parent. You think you're helping. You're not helping. You're the problem. It is vicious.
Yeah, it's a real jackass.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Goes for the jugular.
Yeah. We don't always just have to work with the person who has OCD because there are times they may be refusing to do anything.
Yeah.
So sometimes we'll go and we'll work with the parents to start, here's how our household is going to run from now on.
Yeah.
What is some of the things you see in those types of situations where you've got people reaching out to you, they're in dire straits, their child is refusing to listen to any therapist because, of course, we're all idiots, and they are just walking on eggshells and don't know what to do.
Yeah, and a lot of times in that situation, OCD's hijacked the house.
Yes.
And so all the rules around the house. I've worked with parents where people are living in trailers outside of the house, because they're contaminated. And they're like, I don't know what else we can do. Everyone's out of the house, or we're using gloves, or we don't go in that room, or we don't breathe when he's near us. And, we're holding our breath. And so the first step is understanding that you're inadvertently part of the problem. And a lot of times parents it depends on their own issues. They'll say well, I don't want to damage him, or I don't want to be mean, if he's not ready to work on it. And I think just understanding that it's I always say to parents, you're peeling the onion. You're the top layer. Because they're well, then he's just going to go into compulsions himself. If I say I'm giving you the red cup and I don't care, then he's just going to, maybe do another compulsion. And I'm well, but the first layer of the onion is really easy to peel because you're the one in charge of it. And so getting us out of the line of fire is the first step.
And there's a lot of people who don't want to get out of the line of fire because they think if they're not there to rescue their child right away, something terrible is going to happen, or it will damage their child forever. They won't be able to handle this experience. And so what do you see that motivates families to take a risk?
Well, and kind of going back to what you said, I do feel like OCD is really threatening. And so it'll be maybe I'm going to kill myself, or maybe I'm going to scream so loud that the neighbors are going to hear, or maybe I'm going to keep my sibling up all night. And so parents are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. They're I get that all the time. Every day I get messages of, we did that, but she was screaming at night and she woke up my younger daughter and the neighbors are going to call the police. And so it's a lot of discomfort for the parent of this is going to be bumpy and it's going to disrupt a lot of people. And having a crisis plan is important as well. I think what motivates parents who are in that kind of level of acuity is the level of dysfunction. And I've seen it I'm sure you have seen it get so dysfunctional that you're what part of this did you think was okay? When you were going down this rabbit hole, but you're not aware of it because you're just in crisis mode and you're spiraling and you're just trying to survive.
Yeah, you have no idea what the world is spinning at a different rate than the world you're in right now.
Completely, and then from the outside looking in, you're oh my gosh, this is, and that's when the parents I need to do something different. Accommodating this is not helping.
Yeah, but long-term fix or short-term relief, right?
Right.
And short-term relief can be winning so
Yes.
very easily versus the long-term fix.
Which is understandable when you're running on fumes and you're exhausted and, the child doesn't live in a bubble. Parents have other things going on as well, maybe multiple kids with struggles, their own struggles. And so it is easy to have that happen.
Multiple kids.
Yeah.
Let's go there for
Yeah.
if you only knew anything.
I know. No
about
idea.
that. Yeah.
I wish I only.
Yeah. Exponentially more difficult, obviously.
Oh my gosh. It's an understatement of the world. You have one child who's like triggering the other child, and then the other child is telling you how to deal with the other two children. I'm not talking about my own experience.
Of course not. No, whatsoever. No,
These are
no.
clients.
Yeah. No, it has
rough.
nothing to do with the 3 children that live in your home.
Yeah. No, 3-ring circus.
Well, and then, let's be honest, something both of us have had to deal with, the loss of a spouse.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
in that whole experience too.
Yeah.
Right?
And you add that any layer of trauma on top of it, and I mean, it's enough to make you break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we both went through that, I thought of you a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
just in that whole experience of, and I didn't have children, so the layer that you had to deal with is just, I mean, wow.
Although I kind of feel like, and I don't know how you feel, but I feel like my kids kind of saved me because I think I wouldn't have gotten up. Like I had to go feed somebody and I had to get out of bed, because I didn't work for 3 months and just kind of shut down. But there were these little people who were like struggling more than me almost.
Yeah.
And so it was a motivator.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's really...
That was a silver lining way of looking at it.
Yeah, sure. Mine was she wasn't in pain anymore.
Yeah.
That was my silver lining. And why I could get up because toward the end I wanted her to go. Because there was just so much pain and suffering that was happening.
I bet. Yeah.
But I say all of that because life outside doesn't stop.
It doesn't.
Even though there's a lot of shit going on in the family.
Yeah.
Life still goes on and has things happen.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then OCD will hijack that too, you know? And so then it's like new themes. Like when my husband died, he died suddenly. He was like fine. He had a blood clot and had surgery and then, was just recovering and didn't to my daughter, never woke up. I mean, I found him and he was not conscious, but he didn't die in his bed, but for all intents and purposes. And all of a sudden it was, I love you too. We had the whole like bedtime, see you in the morning. It took me a little while to realize it was OCD because I kind of was in grief and trauma too. And so I was like, I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'll see you in the morning. I'm like, okay, I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah.
And we were both compulsing.
I need to say it last.
Yeah. And then when I realized it, I think she's the one that said, Mom, this is OCD. And I was like, ugh. Yeah. And I remember closing the door and she was like, I'll see you in the morning. And we had already agreed I wasn't going to say it back. And I was like, love you. I remember just standing there. She's like, I'll see you in the morning. And I mean, when you add that layer of trauma on top of it,
oh gosh, yeah,
it was so hard.
Yeah. We have to live our own thing, right?
Yeah.
The guilt that I remember leaving to go play 9 holes of golf.
Yeah.
Just so that I could recharge myself.
Yeah.
But knowing that she couldn't go out and do those things.
Yeah.
But my friends were great. And I had to think about what would I tell the people that I'm working with to do. Yeah. And if I'm not going to follow that advice myself, then I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And so I had to walk myself through that guilt experience. Yeah. And how many people with OCD have to do that too? Walk through that guilt, that shame, that disgust, that anxiety, that discomfort, whatever it will be. And how do we help them take that journey to do that?
Yeah. I think there's just so much guilt that comes along with being a human in general, especially with death.
Yeah.
Just always guilt.
And then, OCD grabs onto death. That's one of the things that will, you could have done better. You could have done more. Yeah. I say that because after Susan died, the first 2 months were only the couple of times that I lost my cool. Those were the most prominent memories that I had, right? And it took a while to get to and you did other things too.
Yeah. Yeah. it's a journey. You know, it's like a grief journey. I don't know why rage has to come with it. You know, that's when I learned about rage rooms.
Really?
Have you ever heard of rage rooms?
Yeah.
My sister was like, you should go to a rage room. Because I was, you know, like anger cleaning my freezer and throwing it on the floor. And like, yeah. I'm like, who is this person? But then you move through it, you know, and I think it's similar to anything that anyone's dealing with.
Yeah. It'd be nice if we only had to deal with one thing at a time.
Yeah. Like, if it's a, you know, I would like a conveyor belt of issues. It's like, here you come, death is coming. All right, it's done. OCD is coming. Here we go.
Yeah, spoiled turkey. There it goes. Yeah,
it doesn't work that way. No, it's all at once.
Yeah, and then they're jammed up at the self-counter line, and you have to stop checking things because you got to go move them all.
Yeah,
at the
it's
same
like
time.
I Love Lucy. I'll date myself, you know,
exactly.
with a chocolate thing. Yeah. Nobody knows what I'm talking about.
You and I.
Yeah.
That's probably the only two.
Yeah.
So, when people reach out, what's the typical stage they're at? I mean, I'm sure the stories have some themes to them, right? So what is the typical time that someone finally is like, I need to do something different?
You know, it's different now that I'm not in my private practice and it's all global.
Okay.
The story is different, you know, so when it was my private practice, it was the stuff I was talking about, you know, like some odd behavior or like some disruption. But now they're coming to me because they're burnt out. They can't find any help. If they're, you know, in the UK, CAMS isn't helping. If they're local, they've been to a whole bunch of therapists, and the therapists have been telling them really bad things, and then nothing's working, and so they're frustrated. Or their child's like not eating at all. Like normally they're in somewhat of a crisis actually when they come into my community, or they've tried a lot of stuff and it hasn't helped. So they're kind of at the point where they're like, I'm going to do something myself, and help me.
Yeah, tell everyone about the community. You know, what is it and what's it like?
It's kind of evolved. So the AT parenting community is. It's a community where parents can support each other. So we do like I do weekly classes on Zoom, and we've got monthly support group calls, which is actually super cool now because it's been 6 years since I opened this. And there was this little boy, and he would be like in a little like suit on the support group call. Like he was like 6, and he'd have this little tie. And just like now I see him older and like grown and mature. So watching these kids grow up, I didn't really think that would happen because it's, you know, it's a virtual community. But so there's a lot of support, and they have access to my courses. Because I want to have an educated conversation. So I'm like, you have all the tools. If you have the bandwidth, go learn all this stuff, and then message me or message other members, and we'll support you. And OCD is not rocket science. I just think people just need to be taught how to do it in a very simplistic way. And the minute you start talking to them, they're like, oh my gosh, like I wish somebody had told me that.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, stop saying it's okay when they say I'm sorry. Like, let's just talk about what these themes are. And then some coaching, and people start to make progress. Or the ones that have kids that, you know, are like 21, 22 and have been in their room for years, they finally have a community that they can get support with.
Yeah. And the beauty of the online experience now is that that's a worldwide community, isn't it?
The reach is just endless. Anybody with an internet connection can get support now.
20 years ago I tell the story, 20 years ago to do this cost $250,000 to have a point A to point B T1 line connection that would go more than a few miles, right?
Yeah.
And now you just need a phone, right?
Yeah.
Or the idea that if you wanted to see a specialist, you had to drive to a city.
Yeah.
Because that's where they were. They weren't living out in the rural farm communities.
And you wouldn't even know you need a specialist.
Right.
You'd be like, what is wrong with Uncle Bill?
Yeah.
You know, he's just circling the house 500 times. Like, you wouldn't even know what that is.
Yeah. And isn't it sad in a way, because the message to Uncle Bill would have been stop it, and even from the local therapist maybe around there who would have said that, and Uncle Bill would have internalized, everyone else must be able to stop it, but I can't. There's something really wrong with me that I can't do it. Because why would the therapist say to do it if it wasn't possible?
Right. Yeah.
When it's not possible
Yeah.
with that tool.
Exactly.
It is possible, but not with that tool.
Just that added layer of shame and guilt. Yeah.
Yeah. Shame's been a theme in some podcasts recently. This idea of I've always thought that the definition of OCD is lacking because it just says anxiety or distress, and it should also say shame and guilt and disgust and whatever the hell other emotion brings you down that day.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And shame is really that secondary issue that adds that depression and hopelessness and the barrier to getting support because it's embarrassing and you have these intrusive thoughts that you think nobody else has. And then the parent's embarrassed sometimes, they feel like they did something wrong. I mean, there's a layer of guilt and shame with a parent of, why do I have 3 kids with these struggles? I I hear that a lot from other people with 3 kids with struggles. And I'm like, why do I have 3 kids with struggles? I feel like I'm a decent therapist, but, they came out of the womb like that.
Yeah. And, this part for the parents listening, I'm sure there's nights that you've sat in the dark and just wondered, why? Where did this all come from? How did this all happen, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Because even though we're therapists, we're human, and we still experience these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just want people to know, watching this, that everybody struggles. We've got good advice, but that advice isn't helpful if we don't follow it too, right?
Yeah.
The advice works for us also, and
it does.
It's our job to put that advice into play in our own life, not just to help other people do that.
Yeah. And that's extra tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we all believe we're special, and the rules of the world apply differently to us than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, and there's an extra layer of embarrassment because you're like, oh my gosh, I hope nobody sees me as I'm struggling with my child.
Right.
Where you're just human too, and it's like, there's a genetic thing going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fascinating, right? You're in the grocery store, one of your children's having a tantrum,
it's mortifying.
And then someone else, and it's like, oh, that's my kid's therapist over there with her child right now.
It's mortifying. No, I have social anxiety, so I used to not want to go out, you know. And then when I brought my kids even to the International OCD Foundation conference, both my kids came both years that I went. And that was too stressful because I was like, they're not, if they're having a hard time or if they're struggling, you feel like you're in a fishbowl with other people being like, oh, that's Natasha Daniels. And is that her having a hard time with her child? I'm like, I don't have kids.
Cross that website off the list there. Yeah.
Not a good resource. Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Where do people find you and your resources and all your information at?
The best place is atparentingsurvival.com. I recently changed my handle social media-wise because who knows what AT Parenting Survival is.
Yeah.
So it's child OCD therapist. I'm like, that's nice and generic.
Boy, that just nails it on the head right there. Yeah.
It's like, nobody has this? That's crazy.
Yeah.
So everywhere you'll find me as child OCD therapist.
Okay. And there are families out there, they're watching right now, they're struggling, they're debating therapy, or should we just hope that this goes away on its own? What do you say to those folks?
I always feel like OCD is like a little bit of termites. And I use that analogy a lot because termites freak me out. I've had termites like 3 times at my house. And I find—
Where do you live?
Arizona.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's kind of common there.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a new build. But one termite's too much for me, And I think when you see a little symptom of OCD, like nip it in the bud because it can spiral really fast. But when you get the right tools and the right help, you can improve really fast too. So a little bit of OCD is to me too much. I'm always saying get an assessment, get treatment. It can't hurt. Just get that support. Be proactive. I don't think reactive is kind of a good thing to do.
I heard someone, I was listening to NPR one day and someone was telling a story and he said, a cockroach in a bowl of strawberries ruins the bowl of strawberries.
Maybe that's a better analogy than my termites.
Well, no,
because that's really gross.
Yeah. But it was the second part that really fascinated me, which was one strawberry in a bowl of cockroaches doesn't make the bowl of cockroaches better.
It does not. Right? Yeah, that's a visual.
Yeah, it really. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, in some ways, it doesn't matter how many good things we add if all we see is the negative things.
Yeah.
And that's our focus, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to see anything else.
Yeah.
And so I think for a lot of families, there's a bit of grace that has to be involved there. We're not expecting perfection.
No.
But boy, do we want it.
Yes. And it is not a linear journey. It's very zigzaggy. And so things will get better, things will get worse. It's a process.
Yeah. And an ever-evolving process.
Yeah,
right?
and you grow, and your
Yeah.
kids grow, and you
Right.
grow as a human being, as a parent as well. It's a lesson for both ways.
I've likened it sometimes to the new clock in the house. When you get that new clock and it's ticking, the first few weeks you're like, God, why did I buy that damn clock? It's so
Yeah.
freaking loud.
Yeah.
And then after a while you don't even hear it anymore. But then someone comes over to your house 6 months later, like, wow, that's a loud clock, and you suddenly hear tick tock,
Yeah.
tock, right?
Yeah,
that kind of
exactly.
thing. We can all build a tolerance to things, and we can all get used to some stuff for sure. But we have to give it the time to be able to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
And no OCD has been cured overnight.
No, unfortunately.
Well, no OCD has been cured. Even I would like to just
Yeah.
throw that, but it doesn't change overnight. That's for darn sure.
Yeah. And I mean, silver lining is kids do get resilient
Yes.
by doing this work. My kids, going back to grief, we were in grief groups and we were around a lot of kids with grief, and my kids were more resilient. And I honestly feel like it's because they struggle with anxiety and OCD, and they deal with discomfort and fears all day long. And so they know how to sit with that more than the average person. So our kids will be more resilient, and they'll learn skills that they can apply in other areas of their life. It's not just this one issue. It's like they're gonna knock out their life because they're learning this stuff early for kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's a great way to end. I really like that. I
Yeah.
think that's a great message, and a message of hope for families that are listening too. So,
Yeah.
to those families, thank you. I would say a thank you, right, is due to those parents who put
Yeah.
that time and that effort in,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
who recognize that it isn't handing your child to someone and say fix them, because the whole system has to change and be fixed in
Yeah.
some ways.
And it will change you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate our ability to chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank all of you for watching the Get to Know OCD podcast. If you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, check us out at NOCD.com. And if you like the Get to Know OCD podcast, you can subscribe on the NOCD YouTube channel. We'll see you again soon. Thanks.